Welcome back to GeForce. You join us at E3 with Michael DePlata. He was the creative director on Shadow of War, the follow-up to Shadow of Mordor, which you also worked on. So, first of all, I want to talk about the original game a little bit, because you had, among many gameplay elements that were familiar and nice and kind of mishmashed in a new way, one thing that stood out, of course, was the Nemesis System.
Yep.
That's the hallmark of Shadow of Mordor, and it really made the game come alive. In case people aren't familiar with it, I'm sure they are, but do you want to just recap what that is?
Yeah, so the Nemesis system in Shadow of Mordor, basically it meant that any enemy in the world, the lowliest grunt, whatever, based on your interactions with them, they would remember and grow and evolve. So everybody had their own unique personal enemies and their own stories with those enemies that they created as they went through the game.
Right, so this was something that really brought this world to life. You had, instead of just faceless orcs, like all these personalities now, and they all move dynamically, so every experience is going to be different. Now Shadow of War is expanding on that, right?
Massively. We're expanding on it in every direction. So firstly, in terms of as enemies, in terms of having interesting, challenging, varied enemies with these amazing personalities, we've added enormously to that. So we've added Olog High, so big trolls, a whole new class of enemies. We've added different classes to the Nemesis system. So now we have tanks and assassins and beastmasters. So fighting them is way more varied. We've added an enormous amount of personality and different roles and identities and flair and outfits, so they're these incredibly memorable characters. But then, as well as having even more interesting and diverse, cool enemies, now when you dominate them using the Ring of Power and start to forge your army, they retain their personality. So we now have them being loyal or potentially betraying, or you saving them or making them your bodyguards or blood brothers to other orcs. So now when they're on your side, there's a lot of personality and character to it there. And then as well as that, we've applied the Nemesis system to the world of the game. So you now have fortresses that you're conquered that are ruled over by a whole new higher rank of these Nemesis, which are overlords. And the orcs also belong to different tribes, different cultures. So the tribe of the overlord actually determines the fortress, how the fortress looks, the culture of the orcs out in the open world, the different outposts you'll face. So the personalization of the Nemesis system extends to every element of the game now.
So you've got this huge game, right? It's not just like an expansion, it's a new standalone, but you also have some DLC coming forward too already, right?
Yes.
So what's the DLC going to focus on?
So what we want to do, there's two types of DLC. You know, the Nemesis system is at the heart of the game, and the tribes and the fortresses and those personalities, and we want to keep building more of those and adding them into the game. So we're planning on having additional tribes after release. They also connect to the loot. So every time there's a new tribe, you're also getting new gear. And we have some characters that we're absolutely in love with in the game, and we want to make full standalone campaigns for those characters as well. So the first story DLC we have is playing as Eltariel, the Blade of Galadriel. She's an elvish assassin that has a really key role playing in the story of the main game, but then we want to come back to her and kind of explore her story and how that intersects with the main campaign as well.
Cool. So you guys, if you enjoyed the story of Talion from the first game, he's got a whole new game with the Nemesis system expanded, and then you've got the Blade of Galadriel as well to satisfy you if that's not quite enough Shadow of War.
Yep.
Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us
very
about
much.
the game.
Pleasure.
Thank you guys for tuning in to GeForce. We have tons more coverage from E3, so be sure to subscribe, leave a comment to be entered in the contest, and keep on tuning in. Thanks, you guys.